Marlon Brando tried to method act with Dean Martin on set. Dean's response made the entire crew laugh for days. 1958. 20th Century Fox was producing The Young Lions, an ambitious World War II drama based on Irwin Shaw's novel. The film had everything going for it. A massive budget, a respected director in Edward Dmytryk, and a cast that represented three completely different approaches to acting: Montgomery Clift, the tortured artist; Marlon Brando, the method acting revolutionary; and Dean Martin, the guy who showed up and said his lines. Nobody expected Dean Martin to be in a serious war drama. Dean was the Rat Pack guy, the singer, the comedian, the drunk act. But the studio wanted a big name, and Dean could open a movie, so they offered him the role of Michael Whitaker, a cynical entertainer turned soldier. Dean read the script, shrugged, and said yes. Marlon Brando took the role of Christian Diesel, a German officer, because he wanted to explore the complexity of the enemy, to understand what makes a man follow evil orders, to find the humanity in a Nazi. This was important work to Brando, art with a capital A. He'd been preparing for months, learning German, studying the psychology of fascism, method acting at its most intense. The first day of rehearsal, Brando showed up 3 hours early. He was already in character, speaking with a German accent, wearing period-appropriate clothes. He'd gained weight for the role, dyed his hair blonde. He wasn't Marlon Brando anymore. He was Christian Diesel. Dean showed up 20 minutes late, in sunglasses and a golf shirt. Brando watched Dean walk onto the soundstage, cigarette in hand, casual, as if he were arriving at a party. "You're late," Brando said, still in the German accent. Dean looked around. "Are we shooting? I thought this was rehearsal." "Rehearsal is important. This is how we find the truth of the scene." Dean stubbed out his cigarette. "I usually find the truth when the cameras are rolling. That's when it's real." Brando stared at him. This was going to be a problem. Director Edward Dmytryk called everyone together. "All right, let's run through the first scene. Marlon, Dean, Montgomery, take your positions. We'll walk through it a few times then." "Walk through it? How many times?" Dean interrupted. "As many as we need. Marlon likes to explore the scene, find different approaches. Usually we'll do a few hours of rehearsal before we even think about filming." Dean blinked. "A few hours? For one scene? That's how we work," Brando said. "That's how you find authenticity." Dean looked at Dmytryk. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course. What if I already know how I'm going to play the scene?" Brando laughed. Not a friendly laugh, a condescending one. "You already know. You haven't even tried it yet. You haven't explored the character's motivation, his backstory, his emotional state." Dean lit another cigarette. "My character's a singer who got drafted. He doesn't want to be there. He's cynical about the war. That's what it says in the script, so that's what I'll play." "But that's surface level," Brando insisted. "What about his childhood? What made him cynical? What's his relationship with his father? His first love? You have to know these things to make the character real." Dean took a drag. "Or I could just play him as a guy who doesn't want to be in a war, because most guys in wars don't want to be there. I don't need to invent a whole psychological profile. The script tells me everything I need to know." The crew was watching now. This wasn't just a disagreement about rehearsal. This was a fundamental clash of philosophies. Brando represented the new school, method acting, internal truth, living the character. Dean represented something else. Some people called it old school. Some called it lazy. But Dean called it honest. "Let's just try it," Dimitri said, trying to keep the peace. We'll run through the scene. Marlon, Dean, whenever you're ready. They ran through the scene. Brando was intense, committed, exploring every moment. Dean stood there, said his lines, hit his marks. No emotion, no investment, just words, Dimitri said. Dean, can you give me more? Maybe find the anger underneath the cynicism. Sure, Dean said. When we're shooting, but we need to find it now. In rehearsal. Why? It's not real in rehearsal. The cameras aren't rolling. The pressure isn't there. I'm not going to waste a good performance on a rehearsal. Brando stepped forward. This is unbelievable. You're not even trying. Dean looked at him calmly. I'm saving it. Saving what? The performance. If I give you everything now, I'll have nothing left when it matters. That's not how acting works, Brando said, his voice rising. You can't just turn it on and off. You have to live in the character. Be the character. Method acting is about truth. Dean smiled. Method acting is about you. My way is about me. They're both valid. No, they're not. One way is professional. One way is lazy. The crew went silent. Dean took a long drag of his cigarette. Marlon, let me ask you something. How many takes do you usually do? As many as it takes to get it right. And how many do I usually do? Brando didn't answer. He'd heard the stories. Dean Martin was famous for one-take performances. One, Dean said. I do one take. Sometimes two if the camera messes up. But usually one. You know why? Because I don't overthink it. I show up. I know my character, and I do it. First time, best time. You want to rehearse for hours and then shoot for hours. I want to save my energy for when it counts. That's not dedication. That's not craft. Dean shrugged. You do it your way. I'll do it mine. We'll see whose scenes work better. The next few weeks were tense. Brando would spend hours preparing for a scene. Dean would show up, check his lines on cue cards, and wait for action. Brando would do 15 takes, trying different approaches. Dean would nail it in one. And here's the thing, nobody wanted to admit. Dean's performances were good, really good. He brought a world-weariness to Michael Whitaker that felt completely authentic. He wasn't acting like a cynical soldier. He was just being himself, and it translated perfectly to the character. Brando noticed. Of course he noticed. He was too good an actor not to. And it bothered him, because if Dean Martin could show up unprepared and deliver a great performance, what did that say about all of Brando's preparation? What did it say about method acting? One night, after a particularly long day of shooting, Brando found Dean in his trailer. Dean was having a drink, reading a magazine. Can we talk? Brando asked. Dean set down the magazine. Sure. You want a drink? No, I want to understand you. That's a tall order, Marlon. I don't understand me half the time. Brando sat down. How do you do it? How do you just show up and be good? Dean considered the question. I don't think about it too much. That's the secret, I guess. I trust my instincts. I trust that if I'm relaxed and present, the right thing will come out. But don't you worry that you're being superficial, that you're not finding the depth. Depth is overrated. Not everything needs to be deep. Sometimes a guy is just a guy. He's tired, he's scared, he wants to go home. I don't need to invent a backstory about his relationship with his mother to play that. I just need to remember what it feels like to be tired and scared and want to go home. But method acting is about accessing real emotion, using your own experiences to inform the character. Dean took a sip of his drink. And what I'm saying is, you don't need a method for that. You just need to be honest. I've been tired. I've been scared. I've wanted to go home. So when the camera rolls, I remember those feelings, and I let them show up. No technique required. Brando was quiet for a moment. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. You're the one making it complicated. But complication is where the art is. Maybe, or maybe the art is in making it look easy. Brando smiled. A real smile this time. I think I've been angry at you because you're doing what I've spent years trying to learn how to do. And you're doing it without effort. I wouldn't say without effort. I just hide the effort better. Do you? Dean thought about it. Yeah, I do. Because part of my job is to make people believe that being Dean Martin is effortless. That I just woke up this cool, this talented, this comfortable in my own skin. But that's the act, Marlon. That's the performance. The guy you see isn't really me. He's the character I play called Dean Martin. So you are method acting. You've just been method acting as yourself for so long that you forgot you were doing it. Dean laughed. Maybe. I never thought about it that way. They sat in silence for a while. Two of the greatest actors of their generation approaching their craft from completely opposite directions, finding common ground. Can I ask you something? Dean said. Of course. Do you enjoy it? All the preparation, all the research, all the living in the character. Does it make you happy? Brando considered. I don't know if happy is the right word. Fulfilled? Maybe. It gives me purpose. It makes me feel like I'm doing something important. That's good. But see, I don't need acting to give me purpose. Acting is just what I do to pay for the things that actually make me happy. Golf. Time with my kids. A good drink. That's my purpose. Acting is just the job. That's so different from how I see it. I know. And that's okay. You're trying to change the world with your performances. I'm just trying to entertain people for a couple hours. Neither one is wrong. When The Young Lions was released in 1958, critics praised all three leads, Montgomery Clift for his intensity, Marlon Brando for his complexity, and surprisingly, Dean Martin for his naturalistic, understated performance. Variety wrote, Martin proves he's more than just a singer and comedian. His portrayal of cynical soldier Michael Whitaker is one of the most authentic performances in the film. Years later, in interviews, Brando would talk about The Young Lions, and specifically about working with Dean Martin. Dean taught me something important, Brando said. He taught me that there's more than one way to find truth in a performance. I was so committed to my method that I couldn't see that his method, or lack of method, was just as valid. Maybe more valid, because it came from a place of complete authenticity. Method acting is about accessing truth through technique. Dean Martin was about accessing truth through being. He didn't need technique because he was always just himself. And that self happened to be fascinating enough to carry a performance. The lesson here isn't that one approach is better than the other. Brando's method acting gave us some of the greatest performances in cinema history. His preparation, his commitment, his depth. Those things mattered. They produced art. But Dean's approach mattered too. His ease, his authenticity, his refusal to overthink. Those things produced something equally valuable. A different kind of truth. A more accessible truth, maybe. One that didn't require you to suffer for your art. One that said you could just show up, be yourself, and that would be enough. The clash between Brando and Dean on The Young Lions set represented a larger question that every creative person faces. How much preparation is enough? How much technique do you need? Is suffering for your art noble? Or is it unnecessary? Brando would say the suffering is part of the process, that you can't create something meaningful without going deep, without exploring every corner of the character's psychology, without living in their skin. Dean would say that's nonsense, that the best performances come when you're relaxed, present, and not trying too hard, that overthinking kills spontaneity, that the audience doesn't want to watch you work, they want to watch you be. And here's the beautiful thing, they were both right. Brando's Vito Corleone, Dean's Dude in Rio Bravo. Both are iconic, both are authentic. Both reach the truth through completely different paths. The crew on The Young Lions laughed for days about the clash between Brando and Dean, about the method actor demanding rehearsal and the crooner refusing to participate, about Brando's frustration and Dean's calm dismissal, about two titans of different worlds trying to figure out how to work together. But by the end of filming, they weren't laughing anymore. They were watching two masters show that there is no single path to greatness, that you can get there through discipline or through instinct, through preparation or through presence, through method or through just being. Marlon Brando tried to method act with Dean Martin. Dean's response: "You act, I show up and say the lines." "We're not the same," made the crew laugh, but it also made them think about art, about process, about the many ways to find truth. And in the end, both Brando and Dean found it, just like they always did, in their own ways.